Hi, this is my review of the Wandering Monsters dungeon deck, or booklet, because this is available in different formats. This is a collection of random encounter tables for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but you can also use it with any other D20 based system, any other edition of Dungeons & Dragons, pseudo-clones, retro-clones, and with pretty much any fantasy role-playing game. You will only need to tweak or adapt the results of these tables to your particular system of choice. And like I said, this is available as a deck of physical cards or as a booklet, a PDF booklet. You can obtain this from the Nord Games shop or from Drive-Thru RPG. However, I recommend that you take a look at the Nord Games shop first, because that's where you get the option for different formats and you will obtain Nord points when you make your purchases there. You will be able to use those points in future purchases. In this review we are going to take a look at the booklet format of these tables. So let's take a look at the quality. The quality is great, the graphic design is excellent. I like that sort of magical parchment look to the entire document. The cover looks great as well. You see this horrifying leech that also looks quite powerful as it is moving towards you, perhaps as the result of a random encounter. Everything is well written, explained, and organized. Perhaps the addition of bookmarks would have been a good idea as well, but it's very easy for you to click on the different results when you roll your D100 to see what encounter is going to come up. So overall the quality is great. Now let's talk about the contents. So you use these results to generate random encounters with wandering monsters. You roll your D100 in this initial table, and the results will take you to sub-tables that will tell you the number of creatures that you encounter, the challenge rating, the page of the monster manual, so it's going to be very easy for you to look at the monster entry immediately. And you also have a bit of flavor text to get the encounter mood going. This collection of tables features monsters, creatures, non-player characters that you could encounter during a dungeon adventure. There are several decks and I will take a look at each of those wandering monster decks, but in this case we are going to focus on those environments like oubliettes, dungeons, prisons, where you can find many classical fantasy monsters. So let's take a look at some of the results that you can obtain. Maybe you rolled the dry bones result. From the darkness, faint points of light emerge, with a creaking and clattering of dry bones shambling towards you. So maybe you encountered 2d8 skeletons, or maybe 2d8 plus 10 skeletons, 1d2 of minotaur skeletons, and a flame skull. Maybe you obtained the probing intelligence result. Faintly, at the back of your mind, is a sense of some great intellect pressing in at the fringes of your own. So maybe you ran into an intellect devourer, or perhaps you are nearby a mind splitter. What if you obtain the red dragon result? Perhaps you encounter a red dragon wormling, or an adult red dragon, or an ancient red dragon. The air becomes dry and uncomfortably hot. Somewhere enormous claws grate against stone. Perhaps you obtain the result of Out of the Crypt. A wave of stale, dry air assaults the senses, followed by a low, hollow moan. Perhaps you encountered a single mummy. Perhaps you encountered a mummy lord. Or perhaps just 1d2 plus 1 mummies. Maybe you obtained the result of Oozing Menace. A dripping, oozy slurping echoes faintly over the unnervingly clean floors, so suddenly you end up surrounded by 2d4 grey oozes. Or perhaps 1d2 plus 1 black puddings. Maybe you obtained the result from Hell. The faint whiff of brimstone wafts through the air, an exhalation from a lower plane. Maybe you ran into an imp, or a bearded devil, or a horned devil instead. And what if you obtained the result of Inhuman Fanatics? The low, rhythmic chanting is joined by a croaking inhuman voice. So maybe you encounter 1d8 cultists and a cult fanatic. Or perhaps 1d8 plus 8 cultists and 1d2 plus 1 cult fanatics and 2 night hags. So these are just some of the many results that you can obtain when making some rolls to use these tables or if you decided to choose the deck of cards, you obtain these different combinations to create your own random or wandering monster encounters. So what do I think of the Wandering Monsters dungeon, booklet, and or deck of cards? Well, first you need to consider if you want to get this as cards or as a book. If you are getting it as cards, it's going to be a bit faster, a bit quicker, drawing the result and applying those monsters. And you could also combine different cards, of course, but when it comes to getting it as a book, maybe you love rolling dice and perhaps using this book as a reference to come up with your own encounter tables. Either way, it's going to be very useful. It's all about your preference. And all of the names of the encounters are so thematic, they are truly seeds or fuel for adventures. So maybe the result of Metallic Monster, Goblin Scouts, Drow Expedition, Taking Flight, all of those names are going to get the creative juices flowing, especially with the flavor text. And I also think that this is a great tool to use if you are into solo role-playing or co-op role-playing that is without a game master. I actually have a video on that subject, please check out the video in the description below. So whether you are moving from point A to point B during the course of an adventure and you want to have some encounters, or have that risk of wandering monsters presenting themselves along the journey, or if you are already implementing the results for the main encounters in your solo or co-op adventure, these tables are going to be perfect for that. And as I said earlier at the beginning of this review, you can use this with so many other role-playing games. If you want to use them with Dungeons and Dragons, with Dungeon Crawl Classics, with any pseudo-clone or retro-clone, for example Labyrinth Lord. I also think it's a good idea if you wanted to have a mixed adventure site, perhaps a dungeon with some rooms near the surface level and some other rooms completely submerged underwater. Then you could combine this deck of dungeon encounters with the underwater deck that I will be reviewing in a future video. So my highest recommendation for the Wandering Monsters dungeon deck or booklet. And I really must put emphasis in that you can use these tables in other non-D20 based or non-Dungeons and Dragons related systems. If you wanted to use this in Savage Worlds, in GURPS, any fantasy system, you only need to adapt the results that you obtain in the tables, the equivalent monsters. It is also important to note that the results obtained in these tables can be used in old school style or new school style of gameplay. So if you want encounters that are perhaps too easy or too difficult, just let the dice dictate the results. Maybe you will have to run away from some encounters. That's a good excuse to run some chase scenes or chase sequences. But if you want a more balanced approach, you make a roll on the main table and that's it. You pick the result that is more balanced with the level of the party of adventurers. I think it's also perfect for those of you that like to improvise adventures. You can come up with some quick encounters by making a quick draw from your deck or by quickly rolling your dice and checking out the result. Thank you for watching this review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending DriveThruRPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you and see you later.